Welcome to Created to Write, the podcast where we turn blank pages into finished work. Whether you're just starting out or ready to take your writing to the next level, you'll find encouragement, honest conversations, and practical strategies to help you grow in confidence, creativity, and craft. Grab your notebook and pen, open your laptop. Let's create words that impact the world together. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Created to Write, and I am celebrating a year of this show. And so I thought I would jump on myself because I get a lot of questions about what I actually write. So I'm going to go through the books that I've written. When I was 11, I wrote a book and I named it The Googles and the Mantelopes. And this little book, which I can't find right now, I don't know what I have done with it. It was handwritten by me and illustrated by me. And I'm not the artist, I'm the author. And I loved that little book and I was so proud of it. And it sent me off on a tangent that I was going to become an author. When I got to year 8, I was told that my writing was immature because I was writing kids' stories. I loved writing story and kids' stories. So I still wanted to be an author. And so secretly, I started writing poetry. Whenever if things got too hard for me, or I struggled a lot with depression through high school, and I would write poems. So I didn't tell anybody because I'd already been told by my teacher that I was immature in my writing. Now and then I might have mentioned it to a few people, but every time I seemed to get shut down, that it wasn't a real career and that I needed to think more sensibly. So then I remember in grade 11, I nearly started to fail English. It was actually the poetry that put me off. It could have even been grade 12, my final year in school. And the teacher disagreed with everything I saw in the poem. So maybe my brain doesn't quite work the way everyone else's does, yet I believe poetry is to be read as a way to gather your thoughts and emotions, to evoke emotion, to a lot of poetry. Yes, definitely. The poetry I wrote definitely had meaning for me. And if somebody reads it and gets something completely different out of it, I say that's awesome. I love that when that happens. And so not only was I failing English, or I wasn't failing, but I felt like I was failing, my teacher didn't give me any credit for anything I wrote. So I don't recall failing English. I just felt like I was failing because I never got any encouragement with my writing. And anything I wrote, I felt it highly criticized and that I wasn't good enough to be that author that I dreamed of being. And so I continued writing poetry secretly. I didn't tell anyone. And I remember telling my husband that I actually think in verse. And he thought I was a bit unusual. And then one day after my third baby was born, I saw an ad come on TV, and it was to do a writing course by correspondence. Now, this correspondence is back in the day of, do you remember it? When correspondence actually came in the mail and you had to read through modules, read lots of modules, and then I could actually upload my assignments, but most of the time I had to post back my assignments because they wanted it printed out to the right form that you would submit to a publisher. So I learnt all genres and I got really good feedback, and it was encouraging that perhaps I could become an author. And then I eventually gathered together my favorite poems and I put it together with my sister had taken some awesome photos, as well as my brother, so Thea Smith and Greggy Dennis, and they had taken beautiful photos that I matched up with the poems that I'd written. And the cover of that book, so it's called Life Inspired, that cover was actually a photo taken by my sister. And then while I was doing the course, I had a download. Do you ever just get these downloads that come? It's like a full movie in your head that you want to put into a book. Well, that's what happened with my spiraling trilogy. And so I actually plotted, because one of my assignments was to plot out a novel. So I plotted this first book of spiraling out of control. And then once I'd finished it, I realized that I was head hopping a bit too much. and I went between the two main characters, between Stephanie. So Stephanie is a young girl that gets ripped out of her all-girls school and dropped into, her family moved interstate, and there she is, stuck in a co-ed school, and she has no friends, and it looks like she can't find a good dancing school either. And that was her life. Dancing was her life, and she wanted to be a professional dancer. And I was writing a bit about her best friend because I wanted to get to know her best friend. Her best friend is Tabby. And so then I penned Spiraling Out of the Shadow, because often it seemed like Tabby was in the shadow. Tabby was the best friend I wanted. She was the best friend I wanted to be. So I needed to write her story to find out what happened. And then life happened. And I started going back to writing verse. And when I was writing verse, month of poetry came up in January, and I finished penning a story called Sink, Drift, and Swim. It's a story that was inspired by a real life story where dad and son went out fishing and the boat went down. This is about dad and daughter. And so Sink, Drift, or Swim, it's actually my favorite book. It's very short. It's written in verse. You could read it in an hour. And it's just a beautiful story of a big messy family and being stuck out in the ocean. And then I really wanted to finish the trilogy because it was something that I had penned book 3. I wanted to know what happened to those two girls, Stephanie and Tabby. I wanted to know what happened to them a year later. And did they get themselves out of the mess that they both landed in by the end of book 1 and book 2? So, I didn't mention that, did I? So, Spiraling Out of Control and Spiraling Out of the Shadow were revamped with fresh covers. And they're actually parallel stories, yet they're completely separate. Well, they do come in and out of each story, but they're definitely, you want to know about both girls because they have their own journeys. They're living in different cities. So then finally, COVID was good to me. Because I revised those 2 books, and then I finally finished the final installment of the trilogy, Spiraling Solo. And then I've got the full set that matches. So they're my books. And I know a lot of you ask and say, well, what have you written? Because I interview other people and they talk about their books. And that's a little bit about my journey to bringing out those 5 books. Yes, I've got other books that I've penned that I'm still working on, and I'm always working on it. And I'll talk about my writing process in another podcast soon. So remember, you were created to create, and perhaps you were created to write. Please, would love it if you could share this with a friend who wants to be an author, who's always wanted to write a book, and tell them about this podcast because it just might inspire them. The authors I interview are just delightful. So please hit that like and subscribe button. Leave a review if you're enjoying the podcast, and I look forward to our next episode.